Hi, in case you're joining for the first time, I'd like to let you know there are links in the description below for all the programs I cover during the video. You can click on them, practice, understand the topic better, and you don't have to download a single software. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hi everyone, we start with conditional statements. The topics covered are types of statements, if-else constructs, if-elif-else constructs, and nested if constructs. We'll start with types of statements in Python. There are empty statements, simple statements, and compound statements. Now, an empty statement has the keyword pass, which will be ignored as it doesn't execute anything, but it also does not raise an error. And programmers can make use of it when they're creating large, complex code and want to leave some parts just like a draft. Simple statements are executable statements such as input-output statements. Compound statements consist of one or more blocks or clauses, and the clause consists of a header and a suite. Now, the suite is a group of statements controlled by a clause. The clause headers will start with a keyword and end in a colon. When we press enter after the colon, the next statement will get indented. Now, all the indented statements will be part of one clause. The moment we move out of this indentation, we basically start another part of the program. While writing code in any programming language, there has to be a control of flow in the program. And this is required especially when there's decision making involved. You want to execute only a certain bit of the code and ignore the rest depending on whether the condition is satisfied or not. We start with a simple if statement to execute the control of flow. Here, if we have a logical expression which is evaluated with the keyword if, and once the output is true, an indented block of statements will follow and get executed. In case this logical expression outputs false, the statements will move out of the indented block or the program will stop execution. In the if-else statement, we have the same condition checked with the keyword if, and if the output is true, we have an indented block of statements which will be executed. However, if the output is false, we have another block of indented statements which will follow and get executed. So only one of these indented blocks will be executed and both will never get executed at the same time. We start with a simple if program where we're going to calculate the volume of a cube. We're going to take the user input for the length of a side, and to check whether the side is a positive number, we use an if statement. Now, in case it is less than 0, this statement will be true. In that case, we want to change this number to a positive. We use that number to calculate the volume of the cube. Here we use stdin to input the length of the side. Even though the user has given a negative input, when we execute this program, we will see that it gives a positive volume 512. In another simple if program, we take a user input for subject code. Now we use the if statement along with a logical OR to check if it is one of these, that is CS, IP, or WA. And if this is true, then it will output please attend classes in Computer Lab 2. In this case, we use stdin and we give the input IP. When we execute this program, it will output please attend classes in Computer Lab 2. That's because this statement is true. Let's look at an if-else program. We have used our earlier example and modified it a little bit. Again, we are taking the user input as subject code, and we use the if statement along with the logical OR statement to check if it is one of these codes In case it is, it will print please attend classes in Computer Lab 2. And if this is false, it should say please remain in your classroom. We use stdin again, and this time we input history as our subject. And once we execute this program, we will see that it outputs please remain in your classroom. Now this happens because the if statement is false in this case. We're going to look at an interesting example of if-else using Pythagorean triplets. We're going to take the input from the user for 3 numbers, and we're going to check that the sum of the square of any 2 of these should be equal to the square of the third. In case that is true, it is a Pythagorean triplet, otherwise it is not. So what we've done in this particular program is we've used this condition and put it in a variable. So we have x squared equal to y squared plus z squared, or y squared equal to z squared plus x squared, or z squared equal to x squared plus y squared. And we've put this in the variable a. If we output a, we'll see that the value of a can either be true or it can be false. And depending on the value of a, we use the if statement to print it's a Pythagorean triplet. Otherwise, it will print it's not a Pythagorean triplet. Let us see the input. We've put the numbers 3, 4, and 5, and these are Pythagorean triplets. So we'll check the output. Since the output for a is true, the if statement will output it's a Pythagorean triplets. Let's change this and see. When we execute this now, the value of a is false, hence it's not a Pythagorean triplet. This is a very interesting way to put a very long condition inside a variable and then use the variable with the if statement. In the if-elif-else statement, we have multiple conditions to be checked. This will depend on whether the logical expression after if is true or false. If the expression is true, the statement block following this if statement will be executed. Otherwise, it will move out of the block and go to the next elif statement, which will check another condition. Now, this condition will be checked for true or false. And if it is true, then the statement that follows will be executed. Otherwise, it will move out of this block to the next elif. This continues till that statement has been checked. And if none of these statements is true, the else statement will take over and execute a statement block. Now, in this construct, there is only one if statement and one else statement, but there can be multiple elif statements. Looking at it through a flow chart, we have, for example, an input statement, some process statements, and an if condition to be checked. Now, if the condition is true, then it will execute some statements. If the condition is false, it will move to the elif statement to check the condition. And once the elif checks a condition for true and false, it will execute the statements accordingly. We look at an if-else program to find the smallest of 3 numbers. We take a user input and store it in 3 variables a, b, and c. And then we use an if statement to check whether a is the smallest. Now we're using the logical and here. So if both the statements are true, it will print a is the smallest. Otherwise, it will move to the next statement to check whether b is smaller than c. In case this is true, then it will print b is the smallest. Else it will print c is the smallest. We take the input as 56, 19, and 29. And when we execute this program, it will print 19 is the smallest number. Another important construct is the nested if-else statement, where we check one condition using if, and if that is true, we have another if statement to follow. In this case, the nested if follows only if the if condition is true. Otherwise, it goes on to the else condition. Nested if-else construct can happen in multiple ways. For example, we can have an if condition checked. If it is true, we have a nested if-else statement. Otherwise, in the else statement, we have another set of if-else conditions checked. We could also have multiple nested if-elif-else statements. For example, if the condition is true, there is a set of if-else to be checked. Elif, there's another set of if-else conditions to be checked. Else, there could be another set of if-else conditions checked. Now, at every stage, we have an if-else statement checked. We look at this in an example. We'll now look at a nested if-elif-else example. By taking three numbers from the user as input, we will store them as A, B, and C, and then we will sort these numbers in the descending order. We start with the if statement, which will check whether A is the largest number using the logical operator AND. It will check whether A is greater than B and A is greater than C. And if that is true, we will use a nested if-else statement to check which one out of B and C is greater. In case the if statement is false, it will move on to the elif statement, which will now check whether B is the largest of the three numbers. And if that is true, it will use a nested if to check which one out of A and C is larger and print the three in the sorted order. If these two statements are false, it will move to else, where it will automatically get the value of C as the largest number and then use a nested if-else statement to check which one out of A and B are greater and print accordingly. We also use a parameter sep, which will separate these three in a comma. We give the three inputs and we execute the program to get 90 as the largest number, 87 as the second number, and 67 as the third number. So they're sorted in the descending order. That was a little bit about conditional statements. We're going to use these statements in a lot of ways in the coming chapters. I hope you continue watching and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.